Cloud. All right, guys. Happy Wednesday. We are continuing on the Go Giver. Tonight we are together. What a joy.
You make it sound so bad, though. You're like,
I feel like I'm dying. It's not because of you.
It's all right.
I just feel sick. So I'm trying my best not to feel sick on the camera, but it's hard.
It's our last night together, though, so.
Yeah. So sad. If it was the first night, I would be different.
I'm also trying to steal Santiago, so we'll see how that goes.
So cute.
I don't know what those.
It's the skull and crossbones dead.
Cool, dead.
That's
yeah.
what that means.
I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read the chat box.
You know what I feel like right now? Those old people that get filmed on camera, like the old married couples that are trying to figure out technology.
That's for sure me.
I feel like those old people right now who are like, oh, why did you chime?
It's all right. We're just gonna go with it.
Keep going. Okay. So chapter 7 was about Rachel. This chapter was really short, but it had a really powerful message. Sable's going to share her favorite
I can
line.
find it.
It's page 54.
Oh, you marked it for me? Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Page 54. So even though this chapter is short and you really don't get the whole Rachel story, for me, the biggest takeaway was when they're discussing how relaxed, what's his name? Pindar, seems to be in his like daily activities. And Rachel says, whoever said being anxious gets more accomplished. And so that whole passage there where they're talking about, of course, he seems relaxed. He is relaxed. Whoever said being anxious gets more accomplished. It really hit home for me because a lot of times we recognize success by how busy we are, or which can also relate to how crazy we are making ourselves. Like, if we're unorganized or if we're scattered or if we're forgetting things because we come up with these excuses like, oh, I forgot because I'm just so busy. Or, you make yourself seem successful by putting all these other, I can't even watch you drink that. These other, sorry, she's drinking like the worst tea in the whole world. And I can see like the chunks of ginger in it when you drink it. My bad. I think you understand where I'm going.
I feel like Arian right now.
Is there anything you'd like to add to my passage?
So the following line after that is, Joe had to admit that she had a point. He had always taken it for granted that getting a lot done invariably meant a high level of stress. But then he knew plenty of people who were thoroughly stressed out, yet didn't really accomplish that much. And that line, I was like, yes. Yes. And I also thought about, like, understanding this when you're talking to people and you're inviting them to join a fitness group or the business opportunity, and they say, I'm so busy. Understand that they think they're so busy. They think they're so busy they don't have time to add anything into their life. They don't have the ability because they have a perspective that, the more anxious I am, the more I'll get done. And also, like, the busier I am, the more important I am. This is like a belief that we have. If I'm super busy, then I'm super important and I'm getting stuff done, right? And so most people, when you ask them how they're doing, they'll say I'm super busy, and it's like an accomplishment. Like they're like, oh, I'm just so busy.
Yeah.
Yes,
like a badge of honor as like shit is hitting the fan left and right, and they're like miserable and unhappy.
But being busy gives them this false sense of importance, and to be really honest with you, the people that I've personally studied who are the most successful are not the busiest. They have a lot going on, but their life isn't what I would call busy. They actually have a lot of space in their life. And when they do have activity, it's very focused and it's very clear cut. Like, I have this to do, I have this to do. And they just get it done, but they don't see their life as being so busy. you know? And even from the outside, I've had a couple people write to me and say, oh, you know, I know you're so busy, but do you have time to answer this question? And I'm like, I'm not so busy. Like, yes, I have time to answer your question. And they're like shocked. They're like, well, you're always doing stuff. I'm like, yeah, I have a lot of activity in my life and I work a lot, but I'm not busy. Busy is a state of mind, right? And it's not, does not equal success, but a lot of us think that that's true. And so when this little interaction happened, I was just like so grateful for it because I was like, yes.
For me, busy means stressful, not successful.
Yes, stressful, not successful. Oh, right.
I know, I'm good. I'm on it today.
Because you're not drinking with tea.
So
I'm going to get new tea one more time. This tea is not doing it for me. Same. All right. Word.
that was really my only take. Not my only, but my best takeaway.
And then I like the little conversation they had about the 3 universal reasons for working. I thought this was pretty powerful. Survive, save, and serve. Pindar says there are 3 universal reasons for working. Survive, to meet your basic living needs. Save, to go beyond your basic needs and expand your life. And serve, to make a contribution to the world around you. Jo thought of Nicole Martin's reflection on her own early fear of success. It was in serving, she had said. Unfortunately, continued Pindar, most people spend their entire lives focusing on the first. A small number focus on the second. But those rare few who are truly successful, not just financially, but genuinely successful in all aspects of their lives, keep their focus squarely on the third. Survive, save, and serve. This is really important because number one for you guys as coaches who are running businesses and bringing in people into this business, understand that most people you're going to talk to are stuck on number one. Like they are trapped by their number one and they cannot imagine a life where they have anything other than number one. Number one is all they think they can have. And maybe number two. Maybe some of them have a little bit of number two, a little bit of saving, or they know that in order to take a trip or to do something, they've got to save money. Very few people that you're going to talk to really have a focus on number 3, on what it means to show up and serve, and that they have a vision for like long-term wealth. And I think our job when we're bringing in coaches into this team is to really stoke the flame of that vision, to really help them see what their life would look like when we're having a conversation if they were no longer in 1 and 2 and had now stepped into 3, you know, and asking them those questions. Okay, so this is where you are now. What would your life look like? And ask this to your prospects when you're talking to them about joining a fitness group or about the team. So tell me what your life would look like if you had already lost the 50 pounds, or tell me what your life would look like if you could go up the stairs and not lose your breath, or what would your life look like if you had a successful business that was completely virtual that would allow you to be home with your kids. Tell me what your life would look like then, and give them like permission to start talking about that kind of life and getting them out of 1 and 2 and into 3. What would it feel like to serve on that level and have that experience of reality? Okay. So keep that in mind, that our job when we're growing a team is to really help people see number 3. That's really our job. Help people see their life as a life of service, what that life would look like. Because most people you're going to come in contact with are squarely stuck in number 1. And they cannot even imagine a life outside of that. So yeah, that was my
Chapter 7.
Yep, that was my takeaway for chapter 7. Kari, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Oh, she wrote, I really enjoyed chapter 10 with Deborah's speech. The line that hit me hard was, you are the most important commodity. I just read that line to her right before I got on live. Where was that? I have it underlined. Where she says, people remember this, no matter what your training, no matter what your skills, no matter what area you're in, you are your most important commodity. The most valuable gift you have to offer is you. And this is exactly what we talk about. We're like, you're not Beachbody. Beachbody is a tool. People are coming to you because of you, because you're the coach. You have the message, you have the vibe, you have that thing, right? That you are the thing that people want to buy, right? She's a real estate agent. There's hundreds of those. There's thousands of those. Like, who cares if you're a real estate agent? Who cares if you're a Beachbody coach? Who cares if you're a massage therapist? For those of you who are therapists and are on this team, who cares? We're everywhere, you know? Why do they come see you? What makes you different? You are what makes you different. That's why anybody wants to do business with you or even hang out with you or be in your life. So important. We don't, authenticity. I love that her talk was about authenticity too. We talk about that all the time. Anne talks about that all the time. I talk about that all the time. Sable's always talking about that all the time. Being yourself. Being yourself is really, really important. That's what makes you different in this industry. Period. Like, really, there's nothing else. That's it. That's the thing.
Yeah, that was a good chapter. I actually read that chapter twice.
Her speech was really good. I love that she went an entire year without a single sale in her business. I was also talking to that with Sable, and then she says that story about she went a whole year without a sale. And then Sam, the financial advisor in chapter 8, says that for the first few years of his business, he floundered. Years with an S at the end of it. And I want you guys to understand something. Anybody who's been successful at any business, this business included, oftentimes it took them years to figure out what that meant to them. It took them years to find a rhythm in sales. It took them years to find a rhythm in prospecting. It took them years to find their voice and their authentic vision for their particular industry. It sometimes takes years because not everybody comes into this business at the same level of consciousness. Not everybody comes into this business with the same baggage, with the same self-image issues, with the same limitations placed on themselves. So when we do this comparison thing, it's really a huge disservice to us because we don't realize that we are all here at different tiers, like different levels of experience, different tracks. We're here to learn different things. We're here to help different kinds of people, find different kinds of voice. And I thought that was really powerful, the powerful reminder that it takes a long time sometimes, it doesn't have to, but it can. And that's really entirely up to you and how focused you are on doing the inner work to get your business where you want it to be. But there is no set timeline.
No, and I brought up too that we sometimes do this we definitely do this to ourselves. But for instance, we follow a lot of top coaches. I'm sure we all do on multiple platforms to inspire us and so that we can see what they're doing because we aspire to be like them. But we're seeing them now. We're following them now. We didn't follow them 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, when they were struggling like we are now, or when they were at the beginning stages of their business like we are now. We're seeing them already successful. Mm-hmm. And so great for us to use their ideas or to maybe mimic some of their suggestions and to be inspired by them. But we can't get discouraged by where they are versus where we are.
Amen to that. Also, that conversation with Sam, when Joe says to him, you must be the best insurance salesman in the world. And he says, I should be, said Sam, but I started out as the worst. When my goal was to sell insurance, I was no good at all. Substitute the word insurance for challenge packs. When my goal was to sell challenge packs, I was no good at all. When my goal was to sell Shakeology, I was no good at all. When my goal was to sell Beachbody On Demand, I was no good at all. Okay? My first few years in the business, I floundered like a turtle on its back. Tell you what it was that turned things around and set me right side up. Joe held up one finger and said, may I guess? The idea of giving more in value than you took in payment? Not a bad guess, said Sam. Changing my focus from seeing what I could get to what I could give was when my career started to take off. Started to. Okay? Seeing what I could give instead of what he could get was where it started to take off. But in a business like mine, actually in any business, you also need to know how to develop a network. Say it again. Develop a network. Let me remind us, we are in a network marketing company. As soon as I read that, I was like, that is perfect for our type of business because our business model is based on networking. That's exactly what our business is based on. So what this man says is like, it's everything. I need you guys to really understand that this is the basis of success as far as like logistics. I want to read this segment that follows that statement. Now, by a network, said Sam, I don't necessarily mean your customers or clients. I mean a network of people who know you, like you, and trust you. They might never buy a thing from you, but they've always got you in the backs of their mind. He leaned forward and spoke with more intensity. There are people who are personally invested in seeing you succeed. You see? And of course, that's because you're the same way about them. They're your army of personal walking ambassadors. When you've got your own army of personal walking ambassadors, you'll have referrals coming your way faster than you can handle them. Okay. This concept is exceptionally important. It's really important. It's very important that you guys understand that the primary reason I've been successful in anything that I've done is because of that concept. The fact that I did two things. I started to give value, a lot of value, and to see how much more I could give than I could get. Yes, that was the beginning of that. The other component of that was that generated an entire community of people online, which is now my followership, that adores me, wants to see me succeed. They're really invested in seeing me succeed, whether or not they're my clients, whether or not they can give me money, whether or not they ever work with me. And so I'm always in their sphere energetically. And when someone needs something that they know I provide, they share my stuff. They send them to me. They're like, I know a girl, I got you. I can't tell you how many sales I've had from that technique. How many of my posts have been shared, my videos have been shared, new people I've met. Okay, that stuff really matters. That is what I created. That's exactly what I've created. And that, if you can just take that energy and replicate that for yourself and say, how can I develop a network of people that it's not about the sales I've had or the clients I've accumulated or the customers I have, but it's about generating a followership that feels connected to me, that feels invested in me. How can I give them that kind of a relationship so that they feel like they want to see more, they want to see me succeed, they want to walk with me in my life? Okay.
And I feel too, that's where we can't get discouraged by not making the sales, because what we forget is that people are watching us, whether they're liking our stuff, whether they're commenting on our things, they're still seeing our posts, they're still seeing us show up, they're still seeing our transformations, they're still seeing us continue to grow. And even if they don't talk to us, they may very well still be an intricate part to your network that's pushing others towards you.
Mm-hmm. Prove that. I've forgotten for a while. Okay, well, there we are. Any more takeaways, Kari? You can type them if you want.
So chapter 9, I thought was super important because this is where Joe learns that these business strategies that he's learning to be successful are not necessarily just for business. They can change your whole life, even your personal life. And this is when he goes home and to his wife, and she's had a bad day, and he can tell, that she's really, worked up. And they have this deal where they each get a certain amount of time per night to not argue, but to complain about their day and vent. And then when their time's up, the other partner takes over for their time. And what I thought was so important was that he mistakenly used the authenticity law on his wife, not realizing, or wait, not, what is it? The influence law, sorry, yeah. Law of influence.
Yeah.
I need to get my glasses so I can read the screen. Anyway, so he comes home and Susan is very upset. She uses all of her complaining time and he stops and lets her continue. And the effect that had not only on his wife, but also on their relationship was pretty dramatic. It was huge. Even to the point where he thinks that she's mad at him the next morning because she doesn't wake him up. And he's like, oh, I've done it. Like, I'm late and she's mad at me. I've done something wrong. And then he finds a sweet note from her, thanking him for listening and making her feel valued. That was a big takeaway for me, that all of these things that we work so hard for to be successful, to be better, to create this network, to create this lifestyle, it means nothing if we can't translate it into our personal life and have it benefit those relationships as well. Usually the people that we're working so hard for, we can't neglect them either.
And two, it just really, it goes to show that this whole idea of keeping score, like Sam said, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work anywhere. When you show up online to serve, just serve. However you feel called to do that. Don't have the tally book out. Don't be like, who's gonna buy the challenge pack? Who's not? Just talk to whoever you feel called to talk to and be a real freaking human being to them. And at some point or another, it all shakes out in your favor. It always does. It might not seem that way in the immediate, but it always does. I promise you that.
Yeah, Kari, it's funny that he's going to cancel because he thinks he didn't do his homework.
And he was stressed out about it.
Which also is a takeaway. When we surround ourselves with the positive people that we aspire to be like, we want to work with, we are using, let's take this, for example, Joe, let's take these lunchtime lessons as personal development, right? He's educating himself to move forward. Without even realizing it, he was implementing those things. So we are what we read, we are what we watch, we are who we hang out with, we are who we spend our time with, whether we realize it or not.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
So good.
That's what my chapter 9. We already kind of talked chapter 10.
I really enjoyed when she was telling her story. I remembered this the first time I read it, and it was nice to read it again when she talked about unwrapping her presents. And she talked about how her husband's present took her even longer to unwrap and to really fully understand the blessing of it when he left her on her 42nd birthday.
Oh, chapter 10.
Yeah. I thought that was such a beautiful way to put that, and it was so powerful to
A positive
read.
spin on a negative.
It was because
situation.
It is about unpacking, because when those things happen, when life happens at you, understand that you're not going to have perhaps immediately that kind of perspective of like, oh, there must be a blessing in this. It's a process. There is unpacking that is involved in your experience of reality. And part of being a coach for other people and a coach in this business is that you also do that for yourself. And then you give yourself the opportunity to unpack your own hardships, unpack your own challenges, unpack your own limitations without losing enthusiasm for what you're doing. I think what ultimately determines success for a human being is how willing they are to continue to unpack without losing enthusiasm, without throwing in the towel, without saying this isn't for me, I'm not good at this, blah, blah. Which is what a lot of people do, which is then why a lot of people don't accomplish much, no matter what it is that they are determined to try and do. So I invite you guys to reread her story, chapter 10, and really let it sink in, because I thought it was exceptionally a very powerful example of motivation and determination to be good at something even when you feel like you suck, like hard. And she just didn't quit, you know? It is unpacking, yeah. It's what it is. Every time there's a challenge in your life, you have to unpack it. Every time you can't see the blessing immediately, you have to unpack it, whether it's in your business or in your personal life, your health. It's unpacking, and allowing yourself to do that without becoming dismayed. I think that's what success is about, personally, in my opinion. Oh, I also like when she's talking about her story where she went a whole year and she didn't make a sale. And she talks about almost quitting as a real estate agent. A year later, I still hadn't unwrapped my birthday gift. She took a sharp breath and let it out again as if to shake off the mood. So I went in the next morning ready to clean out my desk. I had one last appointment that I couldn't weasel out of, so purely out of obligation, I met the prospect and drove to see the house. It's already over, I told myself, so what the heck? I just let myself have a good time with her. I let go of all the techniques. I didn't even bring spec sheets on the house. She clucked disapprovingly. On the way over, we just chatted about everything and anything, silly stuff. I couldn't tell you for sure whether I even told her the asking price. It was the most unprofessional, sloppy, irresponsible, disgraceful sales presentation in the history of real estate. She held up both hands in an attitude of exasperation as if to say, what a ditz. And of course, she bought the house. It was a full minute for the applause to die down enough for her to go on with her story. I learned something that day. When I said that my life as a mom, wife, and household manager left me with nothing the marketplace wanted, I was wrong. There was something else. I'd learned over those years that was how to be a friend, how to care, how to make people feel good about themselves. And that, my friends, is something the marketplace wants very much. Always has, always will. You guys, you don't need to know everything that's in the challenge pack. You don't need to know every program, every ingredient in Shakeology, every protocol. You don't have to have this perfect system. You don't have to have a whole bunch of things down. You don't. You just have to be willing to have those conversations with people. You have to be willing to talk to them and be yourself. Because, like she said, the marketplace will always want to be heard, felt, seen, and cheered on. Always. Always. That doesn't go out of style. Everybody wants that. I can't think of a single person who's like, please don't cheer me on. I would appreciate it if you didn't think highly of me and be nice to me. Like, that's unheard of. You know, so I bring that up so when you guys are really in your heads about what you're doing, like, well, I don't know enough. I'm not prepared enough. I only want to work on me. I only want to blah, 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 that you understand that all of that is pretty much distraction and buying you time because you're nervous and you're scared, which is normal to feel. But you don't need any of that to be able to make a sale. And a lot of my sales have been exactly what she just described, probably horribly unprofessional. And I was not prepared and I didn't have all the answers, but I was just real with them. I sent them a voice memo. They got to hear my voice. They got to hear me laugh. They got to have a conversation with me. And then they bought because they trusted me. You know, it wasn't rocket science. I didn't have to like pull out a bunch of spreadsheets and be super fancy. I like to do that because I like to give that kind of presentation. But I'm also well aware, not necessary. It's just not being successful. So I just wanted to share that. Because a lot of times you guys will be like, I don't know what to offer. I don't know anything about Shakeology. I don't know enough. That's like one thing you guys bring up a lot. And it's like, I hate to bring it to you guys, but it's not even necessary. It's not. to sell. I know you guys want to believe that it is, but it's not. So, what do we have next week? 11, 12,
13, 14. We finish it off.
13, and 14. All right. We are finishing the book this next.
Yeah, because then the following week is just an overall book recap.
Oh, book recap. Cool. Anything else you want to add, Kari? Yes, it was so touching. I love her story. Deborah's character was amazing. I can't see comments either. All right, so we'll finish it this coming week, and then when we do the recap, I'd like for you guys to spend a few minutes thinking about what was your biggest takeaway about this book. What are you going to implement right now in your business from this book? How will your business be different after you've read this book? I would like for you guys to share that with us, whether you're on live or you write it to us afterwards. But I'm really interested in seeing how you feel like this is going to change your business. Cool. All right, well, until we meet again next Wednesday.
Next week. Bye,
Have a good
guys.
night, guys.